They think words are just tools of expression, but Machiavelli knew better. Words are weapons. They reveal your status, your confidence, your intelligence, and your weakness. Before you finish your first sentence, people have already decided if you're to be followed, ignored, or dominated. You think you're simply speaking, but you're signaling, constantly, what kind of person you are. Your tone betrays your confidence. Your vocabulary reveals your status. Your hesitation exposes your fear. Language is never neutral. It is a map to your inner world, a mirror reflecting your place in the social hierarchy, and a battlefield where power is either seized or surrendered. The way you speak doesn't just express you, it defines you. The question is, are you the one controlling the message, or are you being read, dissected, and dismissed before you even realize it? Every time you open your mouth, you reveal more than you intend. The cadence of your speech, your pauses, your choice of words, they all betray you. Long before a listener processes what you're saying, they've already processed who you are. This is the dark psychology Machiavelli understood. Speech is not merely communication, it is a projection of power. And most men speak in ways that disqualify them without realizing it. They undermine their own authority, signal submission, and forfeit respect, all within seconds. To speak is to expose your mental structure, your upbringing, your confidence level, your understanding of social hierarchy. And those who understand this, the Machiavellian, listen not for meaning, but for leverage. Weak men speak to be accepted. Strong men speak to control acceptance. This is the fundamental difference. The average man peppers his sentences with filler words, apologies, and disclaimers. I just think, maybe, sorry to bother, if that makes sense? All of which reveal a desperate desire not to offend, not to stand out, not to be judged. But this is exactly how you are judged. In the Machiavellian world, hesitation is blood in the water. You signal you're unsure of your thoughts, unsure of your position, unsure of your right to speak. And subconsciously, people treat you accordingly, with disregard, condescension, or quiet dismissal. Powerful people speak with precision. Their language is deliberate. Their pace slow. They are not in a hurry because they don't fear interruption. Silence becomes part of their language, a silence that forces others to listen, to wait, to fill the space with their own anxiety. This is not accidental. It is strategic. Machiavelli understood that true rulers don't speak to inform, they speak to shape perception, command loyalty, and conceal intent. When a powerful person speaks, their words move more than thoughts, they move emotions, allegiances, and outcomes. And what they choose not to say is often more powerful than anything spoken aloud. Every tone you use broadcasts a message. A rising intonation at the end of a statement makes it sound like a question, a subtle request for approval. This is how the weak speak, begging without knowing they are begging. Meanwhile, the strong speak with downward inflection, statements that don't require agreement. Their voice anchors the room. Others adapt. Tone is dominance. And even in disagreement, a Machiavellian mind uses calm tone to remain emotionally centered while the other unravels. It's never just what you say, it's how you say it. The insecure inflate their tone to appear confident. The truly powerful shrink theirs, because real confidence whispers where insecurity shouts. The vocabulary you use signals your class, education, experience, and self-perception. Speaking in slang, filler-heavy, sloppy patterns isn't a form of authenticity, it's a form of submission. Words are currency, and the man with the sharpest vocabulary isn't just articulate, he's dangerous. He knows how to bend minds, not by raising his voice, but by framing reality. Powerful speech is linguistic chess. It's about selecting the precise word that shifts perspective, that implants an idea without direct confrontation. Machiavelli would say, if you can name something, you can control how others think about it. This is why politicians use reform instead of cutbacks, or collateral damage instead of civilian deaths. Language is not just power, it is the architecture of power. Now consider posture and voice together. A man who slouches, avoids eye contact, and speaks too fast or too softly, he communicates the psychology of prey. In a room of predators, he will be treated accordingly. Confident men speak slowly, hold eye contact just long enough to unsettle the insecure, and use pauses to force others to fill the silence. This is not charisma, this is calculation. You are always shaping how others perceive you, whether you know it or not. The Machiavellian understands this, and so he trains not only what he says, but the entire presentation of how he says it. Because people don't hear your words, they hear your power. Manipulators are masters of speech. They know how to ask without asking, to offend without being blamed, to lead others to conclusions without making any statements themselves. They control conversations by asking leading questions, rephrasing others' thoughts, and using tone shifts to redirect emotional flow. In arguments, they never raise their voice, they let you unravel emotionally while they maintain the image of calm rationality. And once you're flustered, they have you. This is why Machiavelli favored appearing gentle, cooperative, and kind, because behind soft words, the sharpest blades are hidden. Niceness in speech is the ultimate disguise of domination. Social hierarchies are revealed in group conversations. The man who interrupts constantly, who laughs nervously, who seeks to fill every silence, is subconsciously terrified of being forgotten. He speaks to exist. But the powerful man speaks only when he must, and when he does, others listen. Because he doesn't chase attention. His silence creates tension. People feel the weight of his words because they are rare. This is the psychology of scarcity. The less you speak, the more each word matters. When you finally open your mouth, it's not noise, it's signal. Machiavelli would say, speak less than necessary, and say it better than everyone else. People unconsciously imitate the speech patterns of those they admire. If you lead with conviction, if your words are framed in clarity and strength, others will adopt your language, your phrases, even your tone. This is the moment influence takes root, when your voice starts living in someone else's mind. Think of powerful orators, cult leaders, master manipulators. What made them dangerous wasn't just what they believed, but how they spoke. Their voice became a virus. And soon, it wasn't just their ideas that were spreading, it was their control. But the most terrifying part? You can't not communicate power. Every interaction reveals your place in the social hierarchy. Every hesitation, every over-explanation, every flinch in tone, tells the room whether you are a man of certainty or confusion. Most men walk into conversations unarmed. Their speech gives away their need for approval. Their tone betrays desperation. Their words leak insecurity. They are ruled without ever realizing it. The man who understands this, who trains his voice, studies the structure of persuasive language, removes the weak phrases from his vocabulary, controls his tone, his pauses, his eye contact, becomes unshakable. He speaks not to express emotion, but to direct emotion. He listens more than he talks, but when he talks, he bends the room. He doesn't speak for attention, he speaks for control. And once you control the psychological rhythm of speech, you don't just dominate conversations, you dominate people. If you want to reshape how people perceive you, the first rule is brutal: speak less. In Machiavellian psychology, silence is dominance. It forces others to reveal themselves. The more you speak, the more you expose your inner world, your fears, your need for validation, your emotional volatility. But silence makes people anxious. They will fill it with their secrets, their plans, their opinions, and in doing so, they give you power. The less they know about your thoughts, the more they project. And if you stay quiet long enough, they'll project strength, wisdom, even mystery onto you. That illusion becomes leverage. The second rule: strip your speech of weakness indicators. These are the phrases that scream insecurity. I think, maybe, just, does that make sense? Cut them all. These disclaimers are subconscious defenses, used by people who are terrified of being challenged. But here's the Machiavellian truth: if you speak as if you're right, most people will assume you are. Certainty is a performance. And in a world of unsure men, the one who speaks decisively is obeyed without resistance. Eliminate uncertainty from your voice, and others will begin to second-guess themselves instead of you. Now we enter more advanced psychological territory, framing and rhetorical control. You must learn to reframe situations while appearing neutral. If someone criticizes your idea, don't defend. Reframe. Say, "It's interesting you see it that way," or "That's one interpretation." These phrases subtly position your perspective as the higher ground. You don't attack, you elevate. And when you speak like a man who owns the frame, others instinctively defer to it. This is how politicians manipulate without lying. They don't change facts, they change context. You must become a master of this. Next, master emotional tone control. Most people mirror the energy of others. If someone gets loud, they get louder. If someone disrespects them, they argue. But a Machiavellian mind resists this instinct. Instead, he stays calm while others escalate, not because he lacks emotion, but because he uses it strategically. Your calm tone while others become reactive creates a psychological imbalance. You become the grounded axis around which others spin. And people trust, follow, and fear those who cannot be rattled. The world is full of emotionally fragile men. But the one who speaks like a mountain, unmoved and controlled, becomes psychologically magnetic. Another powerful shift: slow down your speech. Speaking too fast reveals anxiety. It's a subconscious attempt to rush through your ideas before being interrupted or rejected. But fast talkers rarely get respect. Powerful men speak slowly, with deliberate pacing, because they are used to being listened to. They don't perform for the room, they own it. Speaking slowly also gives your words gravity. Each sentence lands like a strike. Each pause becomes tension. This is how courtrooms are won, how deals are closed, how nations are ruled, not with volume, but with rhythm. Now we dive deeper into voice training. Your vocal tone is the sonic blueprint of your psychology. If your voice is thin, nasally, uncertain, you radiate submission. But if it's grounded, deep, and resonant, you signal dominance. The way to develop this isn't mysterious, it's mechanical. Start breathing from your diaphragm. Practice reading aloud in a slow, controlled tone. Record yourself. Remove the upward lilt that turns statements into questions. Aim for tonal finality. Speak like your words are facts, not opinions. Over time, your voice becomes the embodiment of strength. And once your voice becomes stronger than your listeners' doubts, you begin to lead without force. Let's now talk about emotional detachment in conversation. One of the most devastating tactics in Machiavellian speech is to not care whether you are agreed with. You present your thoughts as complete, not suggestions, not provocations, but polished conclusions. You don't ask to be understood. You don't seek to be liked. This emotional detachment creates a strange power. Others begin to lean toward your approval because you're not chasing theirs. People instinctively respect the man who does not flinch when others disapprove, because it suggests that he has something they don't: internal command. Another strategy: ask dangerous questions. Not all power is in statements. Some of the most manipulative control comes from the right questions, asked with calm curiosity. Why do you think that? Do you think that belief serves you? What makes you certain? These questions disarm, expose, and redirect. They force others to reveal their thinking while you remain hidden. Machiavelli understood this well. He said that making others speak more than you do is a form of invisible rule. You control the narrative by deciding what gets questioned. And once you learn to ask questions that lead people to dismantle themselves, your power becomes surgical. Let's now move into group dynamics, where speech truly becomes a game of status. In any group, there's an unspoken hierarchy. The man who waits for others to speak before voicing his thoughts subconsciously signals that he is reactive, not central. But the Machiavellian moves differently. He speaks early, not to dominate, but to shape the direction of the conversation. He then retreats into silence, and watches as others circle around the idea he planted. This is how influence works. You don't need to talk the most, you need to be the one others keep referencing. Speak in a way that echoes, not overwhelms. A key technique: embed commands inside questions. For example, instead of saying, "You should do this," say, "Have you thought about doing this instead?" Or, "Do you see how this option could create more leverage?" It's the same directive, but now wrapped in autonomy. The other person feels they've reached the conclusion themselves. This is Machiavellian influence, not visible force, but subtle steering. You win, and they thank you for it. One of the most underrated weapons of verbal power is the ability to make others feel seen while remaining unseen yourself. When you listen with intensity, mirror their language subtly, and reflect their emotional tone, they begin to feel deeply understood, and they drop their defenses. But while they're revealing themselves, you say little. You're mapping their mind, collecting data, gaining trust, all without exposure. When you finally speak, it's with surgical insight. And because they feel seen by you, they follow you. People will follow anyone who understands them better than they understand themselves. Finally, let's discuss the ultimate form of Machiavellian speech, the ability to lie without lying. This doesn't mean deception, it means ambiguity. Instead of committing to a position, you imply. Instead of stating a plan, you hint. You speak in layered truths, enough to be defensible, vague enough to adapt. This makes you untouchable. Others can't pin you down. They assume they know what you meant, but you never gave them certainty. And in conflict, this gives you an escape hatch. Machiavelli warned that the prince must sometimes act against virtue, but always with the appearance of virtue. The same applies to speech. Let your tone imply honesty while your words serve strategy. In the end, the man who speaks with power does not speak to be heard, he speaks to rule perception. His voice is not just communication. It is architecture. It is manipulation. It is influenced without visibility. And while others argue, explain, complain, and try to be understood, he rewires the room, one word at a time, because in this world, it's not the loudest voice that wins, it's the most calculated one.